All right, we're going to palpate the muscles of the wrist. Most of these we're going to palpate the tendons, just so we can kind of learn our anatomy. So we're going to start on the anterior aspect of the forearm and the wrist, and we're going to start with the flexor carpi radialis. So these tendons, again, are superficial, and they're located, you could say, the anterior surface of the wrist or the anterior surface of the forearm. So to find the flexor carpi radialis, you want to think the radius is on this side. So as she does these actions, there's going to be quite a few tendons here. So this is going to be the tendon that pops out the most when I have her flex and radially deviate. So I could even put my fingers here and say, go ahead and flex and radially deviate for me. Oh, right there. So that's the flexor carpi radialis. Those are the actions, and it's a superficial muscle. Go ahead and relax. So the flexor carpi ulnaris, with that being said, should be more over by the ulna. So I'm going to ask my patient to go ahead and flex and ulnarly deviate. And I could feel that tendon. I could walk up the muscle belly, but just finding the tendons is good. So we're going to find the tendon that's going to be right there, flexor carpi ulnaris. Same thing, flexion and ulnar deviation, superficial muscle located on the anterior forearm or the anterior wrist. The last one we're going to palpate in the supinated position is going to be the flexor digitorum superficialis. So this is a little bit misleading, because when you hear the word superficialis, you think it's going to be a superficial muscle, but it's superficial to the profundus. We're not going to be able to palpate the flexor digitorum profundus because it's deeper than that. But this muscle, the flexor digitorum superficialis, is actually a little bit deep to those tendons that we just palpated. So if flexor digitorum superficialis, it tells you what it does, is flexes the digits. So I'm going to have you open your hand, and I'm going to know that I found those tendons right in here. So if I go a little bit deeper anywhere in that area, I can ask my patient to go ahead, just flex your fingers for me, and then relax. And I can kind of feel everything's going to kind of push up, and it's just because of the contraction that's happening in that muscle that's deeper. It's a wider, flatter muscle, and those tendons run over the top of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip over into a pronated position, and we're going to do the extensor carpi radialis longus and the extensor carpi radialis brevis. These we are going to palpate at the muscle belly. So let's bring the arm this way. So remember that the extensor carpi radialis longus originates at the supracondylar ridge, and the brevis is at the lateral epicondyle. So those muscle bellies are going to be right in this area. Don't forget, we palpated the brachioradialis, which is right here. So we have to think they're going to be right in this area. The extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, think of extension and radial deviation. So when you have these muscles, because we treat lateral epicondylitis a lot, it's really good to be able to find which muscle belly is which. So if you remember from lab, if we have the patient move their fingers, it's going to help a little bit. So move back a little bit. So what I can do is I'm going to have you extend and radially deviate first, so I can feel those muscle bellies really pop out to me right there. Okay, go ahead and relax. Now, I can decipher between one and the other. And again, it's like that piano key feeling where you're going to feel something pop up and contract in one space and the other. If you remember, the extensor carpi radialis longus inserts at the base of the second metacarpal. It does not extend the finger, right? But moving this finger, it does help that muscle to contract. So the longus is going to be at the base of the second, and the brevis is going to be at the base of the third. So remember, if you make an L with your fingers, that's the longus. So now that my fingers are over where those muscle bellies are, I'm going to ask my patient, go ahead and lift up your index finger. So when she does that, I'm going to find where there's more contraction. That's going to be the longus. And then go ahead and lift up your middle finger, and that's going to be the brevis. So middle finger, and then go ahead and do the longus. Sometimes you can even see them kind of popping out to do the longus. Okay, that's the extensors. Let's do the extensor carpi ulnaris. So the extensor carpi ulnaris, remember, this is the posterior aspect of the forearm. So again, if we close our eyes and go back to anatomical man, this is going to be the lateral aspect, and it's going to be superficial. So the extensor carpi ulnaris is going to be a superficial muscle located on the posterior aspect of the forearm. It's going to do extension and ulnar deviation. So if I ask my patient to extend, let's go like this a little bit. Okay, good. Extend and ulnarly deviate. You can see that muscle belly all the way down, and you can see that tendon right there. So you can palpate the muscle belly, or you can palpate the tendon. That's the extensor carpi ulnaris. The extensor digitorum just like at the ankle, we're gonna do the tendons because they're kind of easy to see. Superficial muscles located on, remember this is the dorsum of the hand, this is the volar aspect. So if I say superficial tendons located on the posterior aspect, they extend the digits, go ahead and extend. You could see those tendons popping out. Any one of those you could palpate and you'll be fine. The last two tendons that we're going to palpate are the abductor pollicis longus and the extensor pollicis brevis. So just remember that these are important because this is the area of the snuff box, but it's also a common diagnosis now called gamer's thumb from a lot of using our thumbs for texting and for video games. So if I find my patient's snuff box, go ahead and extend. So my snuff box is going to be right in here, okay? There we go. So it's going to be right in here. So what I'm going to do is these two tendons run together on this aspect. So when I go here and I move out this way, so it's really lateral, right? If you go back to your anatomical man, I move my fingers out a little bit. My abductor pollicis longus and my extensor pollicis brevis tendons are there. Now they're kind of hard to decipher, but you got to know your thumb motion. So if I was going to try to find the abductor, I would say move this way, because remember that's abduction. So move your finger out and I could feel it contract, and then extension is going to be this way. They're both going to kind of contract, or you're going to feel it because they're very close together. But to decipher one versus the other, to show me you know your anatomy, you'll have the finger the thumb either abduct for the abductor pollicis or extend for the extensor pollicis brevis. But they both are located on that aspect of the snuff box.